Will, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really good to talk to you. I've been following your content for quite a while, and I think everybody knows about the Fit2Fat2Fit journey that you went through. So it's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, I was actually curious to know like how you found out about Fit2Fat2Fit or when you first heard about it.
It was just around the time that it was going viral. I'm pretty sure I saw it on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So this is way back before I got into any sort of ketogenic diets or really any sort of dieting at all. But I saw it online, and it was just the coolest thing because everybody knew about this trainer that suddenly became fat and then went back to being lean again. So it was really cool to see that.
Yeah.
And it, in some ways, I know that there were a lot of sort of mental and psychological barriers that you encountered as you were getting back to that lean stage. But it did verify what I always kind of thought in my mind, that there's a way. It's possible. It's possible for people to get back into that lean shape. So yeah. I thought that was really cool.
That's a cool perspective, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's talk about, I think you're the youngest person I've had on my podcast. So,
oh, wow.
Which is awesome, man. I love it. I like to be diverse and get people from all different backgrounds. Tell us about your journey into acting and kind of what now you're 22, right? You're 22.
I'm 22, turning 23 on the 19th of this month.
Okay, so you're almost 23, man. You're getting old.
I'm getting on a bit.
You're getting old, man.
I'm checking this coffee here.
Tell us about the path that led you down to where you are today.
So I actually, I went to college for economics. So I was an economics major at UC San Diego. I got really into it. I was president of our economic society. Every summer I was interning at some new Fortune 100 company, and I thought that's what my path in life was. I was completely certain, but luckily I did enough internships in different areas where I started to realize that there was no fulfillment for me in those areas, and that a lot of the values and parts of my mission that aligned with my values, I could accomplish those through acting. So things happened, and over time, when I was in my third year of college, I decided to make a radical change. And it's not something I recommend anybody to do, but it was something that I felt pretty convicted in my soul about, to make that departure and to completely go for acting. So from that point forward, I set a goal for myself. Within 1 year, I wanted to star on a TV show. I sort of saw myself getting into sort of like a younger genre, because I knew that at the time I could pass for it. Now that it's 2 years later, I doubt I can pass for it. But yeah, so that was my goal. Within a year, I wanted to book a TV show. And I know that it was completely unrealistic, many would say, because I had no prior acting experience. I didn't have any connections, didn't know what I was doing, no acting lessons. So 1 year of very focused work. And it was pretty nonstop for a whole year. But by the end of that year, that junior year finished up, and I found out that I had gotten the role of the Red Power Ranger, and my life changed quite a bit since then. So
a couple of things. I think that's really cool. First of all, the fact that you're so young but so aware that what's fulfilling to you at that age. Like, for me, I think a lot of younger kids aren't aware yet of what brings them fulfillment and don't have the guts to kind of take that risk. I think a lot of kids are just like, okay, do what you're told and follow along with what everyone else is doing, and things will work out. Versus like, man, being aware enough to say, this isn't fulfilling. I don't want to do this. I think that scares a lot of young kids. So I think that's really cool. Second thing is, when did you realize that you had acting skills? Like, did you always have acting skills? Were you in drama growing up, or when did you know that that's what brought you fulfillment?
I didn't know if I had acting skills or not. And to me, funny enough, it was irrelevant whether I had acting skills. I sort of had a vision of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do with this. And regardless of whether or not I had that talent or ability, I had to make that way happen for myself, because I just couldn't see any other future for myself. So no, I never took drama classes when I was younger. I wasn't in any plays. I thought I could tell a pretty good fib if I had to. So maybe that was the only talent. But there was no background in it. So sort of the determining factor with that was it was a passion that was growing inside of me. As a kid, I kind of wanted to do it, but Hollywood's like this weird outside idea. It's not like a tangible place where you can, go and accomplish these things. So I didn't know what to do. And my family obviously didn't have the means or the knowledge of helping me get there. So this sounds really strange, but I believe in divine providence and things like that. And I know that you have a strong faith background as well. But I had a dream this night of myself with a cast of other actors on a Comic-Con type panel. It was San Diego Comic-Con in the dream. And we were talking about a show we had done. And I got asked a question by an interviewer of, are you glad that you chose acting as your career? And I told him, there were so many different things I might have done, economics, et cetera, but thank God I chose acting because there's nothing I'd rather do. So I just found out last week that I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con in September. So to me, that's sort of the dream has fulfilled itself. But yeah, so that was actually the dream that kind of convinced me to jump ship because I felt very strongly about it.
Wow. That's really cool. It's a really powerful experience, man. Thanks for sharing that with everyone. Did you watch Power Rangers growing up? I mean, like for me, I watched them growing up, like the original back in the day.
Yeah.
Did you know?
OGs.
Yeah, exactly. Did you grow up at all watching that, or did you not know what the Power Rangers were when you first got into it?
I grew up aware of it. I can't say it was like my show.
It was before your time, probably.
Yeah, it was a good bit before my time. I mean, this is our 25th anniversary being on the air. So yeah, it's been around since 1993. And yeah, I was definitely aware of it. I think it was a pop culture phenomenon in the 90s, trailing into the early 2000s. But my thing when I was a kid was wrestling. So that's completely where my focus was. WWF, Stone Cold, The Rock type stuff. So yeah, wasn't always watching Power Rangers as a kid, but I knew about it.
Cool, man. And let's talk a little about your nutritional journey too, because this kind of ties into it. I think, how long were you vegan for, and what made you decide to be a vegan? And then talk about that transition out of that life.
Well, I was vegan for too long. It was 4 years. So it was a little bit before college, and then pretty much throughout my whole college experience. The reason I transitioned into that was I had severe gut issues and skin issues, throughout high school. And that it affects you so strongly mentally. I'm sure that you can identify with this through, when your body changes, whether you're obese or whether it's skin issues or whatever it happens to be, it strongly affects your mentality and your approach to people, your confidence, things like that. So it was a huge limiting factor for me. And my intuition was always that nutrition was the culprit. I thought that was probably the lead domino that took care of everything else. At the time, of course, I was living with my parents, and I couldn't really afford to tell them, hey, get this, don't get that, get this organic type food. Mm-hmm. So I waited until I went to college, and then I was pretty strict with myself. Mm-hmm. Now, naturally, when you think about what's the healthiest diet, vegan was the buzzword at the time. So I gave it a good go. And I experimented with a lot of different iterations. I was reading Dr. McDougall and, Dr. Michael Greger and the China study. And I was watching Forks Over Knives and pretty much all of the mainstream information regarding the diet. I did a raw vegan diet. I was a frugivore for a while, lots of different things. And it never agreed with my body. Of course, I think it's an improvement over the standard American diet. There were radical improvements for me. I mean, my skin cleared up. I did have more energy, lost a bit of weight, whether that was muscle or fat, who knows. So there were some improvements. But the thing was, there was a constant hunger. There was never good satiety. I mean, it's just constantly running off of that liver glycogen. And I was eating very high fiber, which can cause other issues. So I was never quite there, no matter how much I would experiment with it. I never looked the way I wanted to. I never felt the way I wanted to. My energy wasn't where I wanted it to be. And eventually I finally quit it. Actually, the first season of Power Rangers, I went through that, and I was meal prepping my food every day. And, because I wasn't going to hope that catering would maybe make a quinoa mushroom salad. Like I was like, I got to take this into my own hands. So I'd meal prep. And finally I was just burnt out with it. I was like, I don't feel good. This isn't working for me. And that's when I made the change
Gotcha. Did you feel like you were generally fit? Like, were you pretty still, from an outside perspective, ripped or fit at this point?
Yeah, I don't think I was ever really above 10, 11% body fat.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, with the vegan thing, I was working so hard to stay there. It was constant, different types of intermittent fasting, sprinting, long form cardio, and then like shorter stuff, HIIT. I was trying everything to stay lean, counting my calories, which is, I hated it. So I was pulling out every trick in the book to stay lean. Now it's like I can't not stay lean with the way of eating that we follow. So it's a huge difference. And obviously insulin is a major factor, micronutrients, the microbiome in the gut. There are so many things that play into it, but really that ketogenic approach is a game changer, I think.
Before we get into the transition into keto and how and why and all that stuff, were you in a way an evangelist for the vegan lifestyle at certain times? Were you kind of preaching to people like this is the way to be? This is what it's done for me. Were you preachy about it in a way?
I wasn't judgmental, but I was preachy. Yes,
Yeah.
because I mean, when you think you found the holy grail of health, and then you see a lot of people suffering around you, the first thing you want to do is try to help them.
Yeah.
So I bought the Forks Over Knives book for a friend of mine that had huge health issues. I had a professor in college that was dealing with a lot of issues, and I literally gave him my copy of How Not to Die, my highlighted, bookmarked copy of Dr. Michael Greger's book. I bought the China study for a friend. I sat my whole family down and made them watch different documentaries.
Wow.
So I would never, ever criticize anyone for what they ate, because I just think that that's a disgusting thing to do. But I would constantly be trying to provide information and resources to people. So preachy, yes, definitely a bit of an evangelist, but didn't wag my finger at anybody.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about how you found out about keto and how it appealed to you in the beginning. Like, what made you pick keto versus like a paleo approach, or just kind of more of a balanced approach? Why keto?
There were a couple different things that factored into me finding keto. A large part of it had to do with YouTube. So basically, seeing dudes that were ripped and trying to figure out what they're doing that I'm not doing, and they don't seem to be counting calories. So that helped me a lot. I mean, I was looking at guys like Jason Whitrock, Logan Delgado, Chris Kruger, yourself, a lot of other people in that ketogenic community, the Keto Gains website on Reddit. So I was really studying up on that, and I went down the rabbit hole. I love doing that. I was watching every Dr. Berg video, and just all of the people that you can find on YouTube discussing this lifestyle. So I started experimenting with different forms of it. There are obviously a lot of different ways to do it, and we can talk about the conventional, if it's cyclical or if it's just a strict, or the therapeutic type ketosis. But I started playing with it, and I really liked what I felt. The most important thing for me was the fact that I wasn't hungry anymore. I can't even tell you how big that was for me. It was just like that crazy hangry, I don't know if it's hypoglycemia or what it is, but just getting rid of that feeling was a godsend. I could focus on my work. I wasn't thinking about what do I need to eat. I need a banana, constantly something. So that was huge for me.
Okay. And how long did you do it for your first time around? Like, how long did you go into it strict? Like, did you do it for 60 days, 90 days? Or have you been strict with it since you switched over?
It was pretty much all out ever since I decided to do it. So that would have been in about January of 2017. Okay. So I never got off of it. Obviously, I would experiment with, let me do a cheat day here and things like that. But there was never like, I think I'm off of the ketogenic diet. I was sold. Sold after Friday. It was a big game changer for me. So I've been probably in strict ketosis for as long as about 2 months. Yeah. But every now and then, I mean, either it'll be a cheat day or I'll start to have some fruits, or, I'll just incorporate usually healthier forms of carbohydrates, but I don't beat myself up.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I think some people can almost, similar to veganism, have a dogmatic approach to, okay, this is my religion, and this is a sin if you eat carbohydrates, almost, and it becomes almost someone's new religion. Did you kind of sense that as you got into it, like looking at carbs as bad, evil, or have you always had kind of a balanced approach to keto?
Yeah, I would say that I have sort of a balanced approach to it. I mean, I was never chasing ketones. I was never concerned too much about what the ketone strip would tell me, or a glucometer. Ultimately, I knew if I was restricting carbs and then I was using as my primary food sources, whole foods, properly raised animals, organic leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, things like that, just good whole foods, and good sources of fat, then I thought I was okay. So I never cared that much about what my millimolars were or anything like that. I didn't get too obsessed with that stuff. I know that there are people that will chug MCT and take exogenous ketones and do everything to try to chase this magical number, which perhaps there are benefits for that if you need that therapeutic ketosis and if you are trying to treat epilepsy or one of those diseases. But I think for the general person that's trying to get lean and feel good, I don't know if that's the most important reading. There are many different biomarkers of health, and I think that's just one of them that has to be factored into a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone else about, the different approaches to keto. And I think the problem is that people want a one-size-fits-all approach for everybody, which doesn't exist. It doesn't work. And people do keto for different reasons. Like I know people personally that suffer from epilepsy and they have to be 100% strict keto, and they do take exogenous ketones so that they don't have to suffer seizures. And if they have one cheat meal, they have had seizures before. And so and so there's people that have a lot more lean muscle mass, like you and I, that are trying to, be fit, and then there's people that are a little bit more sedentary and they're not trying to get ripped or shredded. They're just trying to become healthy. And I think, the problem with the chasing the ketones thing is just education, of people understanding that, hey, higher ketones don't equal more fat burning. Right. I think that's the problem is just a lack of knowledge. And I think, sometimes with keto, it can be intimidating with, okay, how do I do this? Like, from going from eating the standard American diet to eating keto all of a sudden, it's going to take a big shift for people to make that leap in the beginning, but we got to keep it simple for them. But at the same time, I guess I see what the problem I see is people not knowing what to do. But it sounds like with you did your research first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't jump into anything that requires willpower without doing research.
Gotcha.
If I don't know where I'm headed, then I'm game over.
Yeah. And how did your body handle meat when you first started incorporating meat back into after veganism for so long?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. So I was in New Zealand at the time, which is where we shoot.
Cool.
And I didn't go into it like dipping my toes in the water at all. It was legit 4 years without ever consuming meat and rarely ever consuming dairy. And literally the next day after making this decision, I had 2 steaks and then 2 chicken skewers. So I must have slammed maybe 200 grams of protein in that meal. And honestly, I felt fine.
Really?
Like I was kind of anticipating maybe there were some microbiome changes. I'm so used to dealing with a lot of high fiber. How is it going to react to this? I felt great.
Really?
Really didn't feel any different. There was no food coma. There was nothing strange. Woke up the next morning, felt good. So, I mean, that was sort of another straw in the hat of this is the right direction for me.
Was there any backlash to your followers or fans that saw you make that switch?
I didn't promote veganism heavily on my social media. So luckily I wasn't known as like the vegan Power Ranger. Thank God.
Yeah.
Man, what a selling point that would be. The vegan Red Ranger. Man. So yeah, there luckily wasn't too much backlash on that. Mostly there were questions raised by family and friends because my family knew how strict I was about it. And my dad knew about my rabbit-like eating habits. Everybody would send me the vegan memes that they'd see on Facebook. So there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, who cares? So I didn't really worry about it.
Gotcha. How has your approach to keto changed since the beginning, since when you started to where it is now? Has it evolved or changed, like your perception of what works best for you?
Absolutely, it has. So I've basically started to move more towards, I guess I'm not as concerned anymore about gluconeogenesis.
Hmm.
Originally, I was trying to maintain a strictly ketotic state, constantly metabolizing fat, no creation of new glucose in the body. I didn't want to get involved with that. But now I'm actually starting to moderate back down my fat levels to where I'm not adding fat so much, but I'm consuming whole food sources of fat, such as eggs, maybe fattier cuts of beef. Whereas in the past, I would chop off some Kerrygold, slather it on top. I'm not really adding fat to my coffee anymore. So it's basically moderating my intake of fat. And I've increased my perhaps caloric intake or gram intake of protein. And my carbs are still basically next to nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 grams of carbs a day. Not even net carbs. I mean like whole carbs, just
Yeah.
a few vegetables. So that's still really low. So I've basically found that adjusting those two macronutrients, where maybe both of them are now at about 150 grams a day for
Hmm.
protein and fat, that's actually helped me lean out a bit. And I'm still doing, fasted workouts in the morning. So I'm still, probably depleting liver glycogen, operating in mostly a fat burning state, and then going into my main meals of the day. So that's the main thing. Whereas in the past, it was like macadamia nuts galore, fat bombs. The more fat I could put in my coffee, the better.
Yeah.
And I would notice that I would hover maybe around, if I had to guess, like eyeball it, probably around 12, 13% body fat. And I
Hmm.
just couldn't break into that ripped, like lean state. And I found with changing those around, more protein, a little bit less fat. Now, well, crazy enough, I'm not exactly sure what I am now, but actually have it over here, this in-body test done.
Yeah.
And they said I was 3.8% body fat. So
Wow.
whether or not that's true, I mean, that's not a DEXA, it's not a
Yeah.
body pod, but I would guess just from looking at it now that I'm more like 5 to 6%.
Yeah.
So it's definitely made a difference for me.
Wow. Any changes in satiety for you with the higher protein?
I'm very satiated with higher protein. I mean,
Okay.
it's a lot more protein than I used to eat though, because I
Yeah.
mean, when I was going very strict keto, I was sometimes at like 70 grams of protein a day, 70, 80 grams of protein a day. I would try to hit 100, but I wouldn't always get there. So now being able to eat another 70 grams on top of that, it's a lot of protein. And especially since it's coming with those whole food fats,
Yeah.
I'm very satiated and I'm not dealing with any sort of hunger
Yeah.
in that respect. So, and eggs are extremely satiating as well. My diet's
Yeah.
mostly beef and eggs right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about this because I think this is becoming a popular, sexy term, kind of like veganism was back for you. Is the
Yeah.
carnivore diet, the carnivore
Yes.
approach that people, kind of freak out about because they're like, wait, you're only eating meat, and which it sounds like pretty much you are meat and eggs. People have questions about it, concerns because they think, oh, that can't be healthy. Man was meant to be an omnivore, not a carnivore. How has that worked out for you so far with your experiment? Obviously, you've leaned out. Has there been any changes in like blood work or mental clarity? Satiety sounds like it's about the same, but any other changes you've noticed?
Yeah, well, I would preface it by saying that I agree with people that we're meant to be omnivores. I would say I'm maybe one of the less dogmatic carnivores, just because I've done the whole vegan thing and I've done the carnivore thing now, and I'm not so sure about any of these things anymore. Like
Yeah.
you can't fully pledge your allegiance to any one of these. So this just works really well for me right now. But what I have noticed is, I think one question that gets brought up a lot in terms of fiber and regularity, it's not an issue for me.
Yeah.
I've gone a long time without vegetables when I've been experimenting with this. It just doesn't seem to be an issue for me at all.
Interesting.
And I know that there have been, I think it's a book, The Fiber Menace.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of different opinions about this, whether fiber really is beneficial. I know that it feeds, that gut bacteria and it helps, in terms of being a prebiotic, but it doesn't seem to have had an issue for me so far.
Yeah.
Athleticism, that's been a huge one.
Hmm.
So I've definitely gotten a lot leaner and lighter, which has helped a lot with my athletic performance. And the crazy thing is I've gotten stronger, but I'm not lifting heavy anymore. So I
Interesting.
was training powerlifting, but recently, like I do very lightweight and I'm doing a lot of cardio now, but my actual powerlifting, like 1 rep maxes have gone up. Um, So my theory is that it may have to do with the increased protein leading to increased insulin spikes. And, there's better muscle protein synthesis under those conditions. So yeah, definitely better athleticism, mental clarity. Mental clarity has been about how it usually is since I got on the ketogenic
Okay.
diet. So I haven't noticed any differences. It seems like carbs ruin my mental clarity. Protein and fat seem to be good for
Gotcha.
me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've talked to some other people that have done some experiments with the carnivore approach, and one of them had awesome results. Like felt awesome, felt amazing. Like no issues with digestion. To be honest with
yeah.
you, with the lack of fiber, and one of them felt like he was hypoglycemic, like the high protein for whatever
Mm,
reason. He's a little bit different, where he had he's more insulin resistant, not as
mm,
active, not it doesn't have as much lean muscle mass, isn't like lifting heavy or anything like that. So this is where the bio individuality comes into these approaches.
absolutely.
And I think it's important for everyone listening to realize that keto is very bio individual. Like find what works best for
Yes.
you. And that's what's so cool about becoming your own self experimentation, like you've done, Will, is being able to find what's optimal for you. But it's evolving, it's changing. Maybe in 6 months or a year from now, what worked yesterday for you might not work, today. So being open to that
Yeah.
change. But it sounds like you're thriving really well off the carnivore approach, right?
It's doing very well for me. But I totally agree with you in terms of bio individuality because like the philosophy of follow the guru, like the guru has achieved what he has based on his or her goals. They're following their own approach, what's working for their body. And if that doesn't necessarily align with, they don't have the same body as you, they don't have the same goals as you. So you really do have to find what works for you and then start to determine what you need to do based off of that. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you said you were first inspired by YouTube and the education that you received there. I understand you have your own YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
is that a big part of your brand, is to pay it forward by kind of educating people who used to be where you were?
Yeah. So that is part of what I want to do. My YouTube channel is currently focused a lot on fitness. It's becoming more focused on nutrition. And then there's a lot of lifestyle stuff that has to do with, my acting career, traveling, things like that. But so actually, yeah, I just recorded and I'm going to be editing later today a vlog about what factors do I think led to this supposed 3.8% body fat reading.
Hmm.
And then just best practices that I could recommend to people. So I'm definitely trying to put that information out there because there is an abundance of information, but whenever somebody achieves something, I think they should, kind of reach back and lend a hand to the other people that are trying to do that. So I'm putting out more information on that. And I've also released a program that kind of has everything that I've learned about diet and nutrition throughout my journey and what's worked for me. And that is the selling point of it. Like, this is the way I look. This is who I am. This is what's worked for me. Try it at your own peril.
Gotcha.
So that's my carnivore shredding program, which is on my website, williamshewfelt.com.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure and have all of that in the show notes so that everybody listening can go check that out. I think it's really cool, man, that you're paying it forward by kind of having your own channel and educating, your followers and educating the masses as well. Really quick question about the way you eat now. Do you just eat when you're hungry, or do you stick to like maybe an intermittent fasting schedule, or do you eat 3 meals a day? What's your eating schedule look like now, being more of a carnivore approach?
Generally, it's 2 meals a day, occasionally 1 meal a day. It's
Hmm.
rarely ever 3 meals a day. And pretty much the only rule I stick to is in the morning, I make sure that I train fasted. That's the most important thing. So, I mean, I'll just have a cup of coffee. Well, who am I kidding? Like 2 or 3 cups of coffee. So
There
I'll
you
do
go.
that. Occasionally, some green tea just to mix it up. And then I'll go do my workout completely fasted. So that's usually about 15 to 25 minutes of cardio, whether it's HIIT or maybe it's just a fast run, something like that. And then I'll jump into some very bodybuilder hypertrophy type, higher rep volume type work. Working on the bro muscles, the aesthetics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll do some of that, and that's usually my workout. And then after that, I'll just start working on what I got to do for the day until I feel like legitimately hungry. I really wait until I have to eat. I try not to eat if I just feel peckish or anything like that. I don't snack at all. So a lot of the time I'll end up eating, 12, 1, 2 o'clock. Sometimes if I'm real busy, I'll just end up having dinner, and it's just like 5 or 6 o'clock and I'll just eat dinner. So yeah, that's usually what my eating schedule looks like. And it's mainly, I'll try to focus on a good serving of some sort of animal protein. So it's usually maybe some beef or eggs or turkey or chicken. I do try to do fish and like salmon, sardines, things like that for the omega-3s. Occasionally organ meats for the micronutrient benefits from those. Bone broth, things like that. And I don't think vegetables are bad. Like, I guess that's where I differ from a lot of other carnivores, where they're definitely not the enemy. Like kale and broccoli are not the enemy. Just whether or not they're entirely necessary, I don't know yet. I've heard a lot of different things on both sides, but I definitely don't think they're bad. So occasionally I'll do those as well. Gotcha.
And how does this fit into, Hollywood with what you do? You're acting, like if you're traveling a lot, you're working long days. Does this lifestyle fit in with what you have to do for your job?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's so much easier. I just have to find 2 protein heavy meals a day and I'm good. It's very easy in terms of talking to catering.
Gotcha.
Just, hey, if you guys got any beef, any steaks, anything like that, that's all I need. Let me get those. It's very simple. I don't need to request anything special at the craft table. I don't need any, kale chips like I used to. I don't have to do any of that stuff. So it's very simple. And the best thing, which I know that you follow intermittent fasting as well, or at least when I read okay, so you still do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of productivity, it's fantastic. Really, you get to zone in and you get to experience, especially if you're caffeinated. But so you're experiencing all of the mental benefits of ketosis and also caffeine, and you're just totally getting your work done. And you only have to eat when you need to, so you're not constantly experiencing that 2-hour up and down with your blood sugar. So I find it to be tremendously helpful for me. I mean, I don't know how The Rock does it. I don't know how he's doing his 7 meals a day, and he's as busy as he is. And all the bodybuilders that do that sort of thing, respect to them. People doing MyFitnessPal and stuff like that and meticulously calorie counting. I don't know how they do it. That's a full-time job to me. So hats off to them.
Well, when you meet The Rock, you have to convince him to switch over to keto at some point. To be like, hey man, this is gonna be so much more optimal for you. You don't have to eat as much, but you can maintain your muscle mass. Do any of the other? Yeah, exactly. See what he says. See if you can convince him. Will
I'll get the people's elbow.
Or any of the other Power Rangers on keto?
So one of the other Power Rangers has experimented with it, and he's more open to it.
Yeah.
But generally, they follow. I mean, so for one, they're extremely athletic, and they're young people, so they can damn near eat anything, and they're okay. So the things that I've seen in terms of them when they want to get real lean and cut, they'll do portion control. They'll up cardio. They'll do more clean eating. So like, the brown rice and quinoa and salads and things like that. But yeah, nobody really follows a strict diet. I mean, they're all kind of flexible with that. I was the only one that would be bringing my garbanzo beans and black beans to set. It's ridiculous. And then of course, eventually that changed and suddenly you couldn't find any vegetables on my plate at all. And I was over there having steaks. But yeah, I was the only one that really followed a strict diet about those things.
Yeah. And what's the most commonly asked question you get from people in the industry? When they have no idea what keto is, like, and you try and tell them, what's the most commonly asked question you get when you tell people about the type of diet you're eating?
Oh, it's usually something about, well, it's one of 2 things. It's usually, isn't that much fat bad for you?
Uh-huh.
So naturally, they're waiting for you to drop dead of a heart attack. So you have to explain to them that it's not going to happen. And the second thing is, don't you need carbs for energy? That's, and I'm sure you've heard those a million times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get tired of explaining like, oh, but when you switch over, then your body goes through the keto adaptation and people they really couldn't care less. They're just trying to pick at you. So usually I'll be like, this is what I've done and this is what I've experienced from it. So you should check it out. It's the Ketogenic Diet. Google it. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I just keep it simple.
Okay. No, I'm just making sure you go through the same thing I go through, which it sounds
Yeah,
like you do.
no.
So,
Have my sympathies.
but it's interesting because, like, we've been brought up with this state of mind of like these things are bad for us, and so many people, that was just common knowledge. Like everybody was like, "Oh yeah, fat, it'll kill you," and now it's like, "Oh, wait a second, you're trying to tell me it's not? It's just slow." It's slow to make those changes, and to convince people. Two questions. One, have you gotten blood work done recently to see how these have changed your lipids? And then two, or not just lipids, but general overall health. And then two, do you ever experiment with extended fasting?
So in terms of getting blood work done, I have never had blood work done. So that would be really interesting. I would be really, really interested to see what's going on in my body.
Yeah.
Who knows? I could be impending. Who knows what might be about to happen?
Yeah.
But
You feel
judging
healthy.
based on the way I feel, which is a very subjective measure of health, I feel fantastic, and I have a ton of energy. My athletics, everything like that is going well. So that's all good. I don't feel like I have any issues, but I would be very interested to see where I am with that. I did get on the InBody test, I did get some markers of inflammation that were very low. So apparently I have low inflammation. And all of those, like my visceral fat, for example, was extremely low. They said it was the lowest they had ever seen. So I was like, that's good. My organs aren't being crowded out by visceral fat. So body composition wise, I'm happy. But yes, I do want to get blood work done and see how that is.
Yeah.
Extended fasting, I've done quite a few 48-hour fasts.
Okay.
I've never done a 72-hour fast, but I've probably 6 or 7 times I've done a 48-hour fast. And it's a really interesting feeling when you get into that second day and you start to get it's like euphoria. Mm-hmm. It's tough to describe, but it's definitely different than intermittent fasting when you get into that deep level of fasting.
Yeah. So
I have done that. And then every week I'm probably doing, a 24-hour fast, just a random busy day, and then I decide I'll just eat dinner. So I do that quite a bit, but that's such a benefit. People don't realize how beneficial that is until, you're super busy and you realize, wait a minute, I don't have to eat until 5 or 6 tonight. This is fantastic. So,
yeah. Okay. What's the one food that in your opinion is worth getting out of ketosis for? Like, is there one food that's like totally worth it to
you? There's plenty.
Okay, there's plenty. Let's go down maybe the top 3. Let's do top 3.
Top 3. Okay, so man, where to start? Because I was that guy that would tell people like, oh man, I'm busy tonight. I got so much work, and then I'm sitting down in front of a movie eating like junk.
Yeah.
Ice cream's way up there. Any combination of fat and sugar and dairy is fantastic.
Okay.
Ice cream, donuts are incredible. Let's see what else we can come up with. My mom does some pretty fantastic cooking. She's like a Caribbean lady that has like a whole mix of food that she does. So I love her cooking. But pretty much, if I had to say, I'd just say anything on the standard American diet is
is worth it.
But you ultimately, this is according to your goals, like we talked about. I'll do cheat days occasionally, but I'm not doing them out of necessity, and it's just every now and then it'll be like, okay, let's take a day and just relax with this.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. What events, you said you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con in September. What other events do you have coming up that you'll be at where people can maybe meet you or see you in person?
Absolutely. So I'll be at KetoCon in, I believe that is June 15th to the 17th.
Yep. I'll be seeing you there, by the way. So
hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be speaking there.
Awesome.
So
I'll be speaking on not the main stage, but they're hiding me in some hallway or something like that. I don't know. I'll be
man.
in a different area.
We gotta talk to them about that.
Talking a little bit about like my journey in nutrition, things like that. So KetoCon is definitely one of them.
Okay.
But in terms of other public appearances, I don't have too many lined up. It's mainly Power Ranger related. So unless your listeners happen to be really into Morphin Time, I'll probably be doing the convention circuit next year.
Okay.
But yeah, YouTube's fantastic, Instagram, things like that.
Yeah. Tell us where we can find you online. People can connect with you on social media.
So on Instagram, it's at William Shewfelt. So William and then Shewfelt. And on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Will Shewfelt. So that's pretty much where I upload most of my content. And yeah, those are my main stays online.
Okay. Well, Will, I just want to say thank you for coming on and being an inspiration, man. I think you're a big inspiration for a lot of people, especially the younger generation who a lot of people really don't care about health and nutrition because, like you said, a lot of them are young and they can get away with eating whatever they want. They look great. So they're like, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. So I'm actually really impressed with like all your knowledge that you have on nutrition. I think it's awesome. I think it's an inspiration for people your age to kind of take control their health now instead of waiting until you're 60 and then you have problems. So I love it, man. Absolutely. So I'm a big fan and I appreciate what you do, Will. So appreciate you coming on, and we will be seeing you at KetoCon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew. You've been a huge inspiration to me as well. And you've been a guiding force for a lot of people to create lifestyle changes. So thank you so much. And it's been an honor.